dance for joy or lust or anger.
Welcome to Sensible Secondhand Classics, the show where we look at nostalgic cars that you can buy that are over 15 years old, but for a budget of between £1,000 and £5,000. This is a 1971 Austin 1300 GT Mark III. And yes, it is the same one that Ian Seabrook from Hubnut drove at the Great British Car Journey a couple of years ago. Because I am at the Great British Car Journey, I'm having a lot of fun. So the kind of top spec, I suppose, version of the ADO16s, that was the code name for the 1100 and 1300, made by BMC, later British Leyland, was this Austin and also Morris at some point 1300 GT. You could argue that maybe the Van der Pla Princess was the most luxurious one. This actually shares the same engine at 70 horsepower with the MG 1300 that was, I think, gradually sort of taken out of production when these came in. And it is a pleasure to drive this car with the all synchromesh gearbox and remote brake servo that were completely missing from the 1964 Austin 1100 that I drove on Sensible Secondhand Classics towards the end of last year. Still got to do some arm twirling because we haven't got any power steering or anything like that. And I think I'm a bit optimistic in being able to drive everywhere in second gear in this car, but you know, we'll give it some revs here. We've got a little rev counter. And yes, what an absolute delight. Beautiful to drive. The driving position is very typical of the sort of Isagonis cars. Austin 1800 kind of similar to this as well. I find those a bit more difficult to drive. There's a bit more sort of arm twirling involved in this. There is some arm twirling with this, but it's not nearly as much as one in a Land Crab. Hydraulic suspension seems to work well, even if we've got a little bit less pressure in the system, so the car rides a little bit lower. Compared with the Hillman Imp that I've just driven, and perhaps you've seen on the channel before, this is a delight. But the Imp is a very interesting car, and in some ways a very advanced car for the time. It actually came out a year later than this ADO16. But I think I prefer these, having driven two of them, particularly this one. It's kind of about as good as they probably get. Let's try third. There we go, I think that's third. Yeah, gearbox is a little bit weird in this. Maybe the gearbox in the other one I drove was a little bit easier than this. I don't know what's happened with this particularly. It has had a full restoration, so not quite sure what's going on there. But a lot of other people have actually said this is a little bit tricky with the gearbox, this particular car. Maybe it's just because it's so cold today, I don't know. But yeah, through the slalom very nicely. Just got to feed the wheel, feed the wheel, feed the wheel. There we go. Cycle driving test, and don't mix cross-plan radial tyres. It's another thing you pick up from the man who's in his scarf driving his 1100 with bald tyres on a wet road. Yeah, not the best idea. We won't be doing that today. Before the museum actually ever even opened, Ian Seabrook from the Hubnut channel came and drove this exact car, which he very, very much enjoyed. This is one of the only cars, or possibly even the only car at Great British Car Journey that has been fully restored, and it is a beautiful restoration. The ADO16 that I drove on Sensible Secondhand Classics back in October, it was in very nice condition. It does actually, unfortunately, that car needed another restoration because the first one that was done about 2014 wasn't particularly good. And a lot of you seem to like that, apart from one person who massively complained about the video because apparently it was unwatchable. But hopefully this one's not unwatchable for you today. So to 71, it is an early Mark III. We can see where it came from. Robertson Brothers from Ashton under Lyme, which I think is near Manchester. The 061 area code suggests it is. So yeah, it's a very different type of ADO16, which is a model code for the 1100 and 1300, from the 64 Austin 1100 Mark I. So straight away we can see a lot of changes when we're outside. The fends are different on this Mark III. They are a different design. As Ian Seabrook and everyone else points out, the rear lights of those fitted to the good old FX4 London Taxi for many, many years. Nice kind of wheel trims on this. They're not alloys. You can see that the wheels are still underneath the trims here. But these rubbing strips on the sides and a very, very different interior. Actually got a full width dash in this with a glove box. This lovely sporty steering wheel. And it will probably feel really comfortable because they are comfortable cars, these, for most people. So still a bit like a Mini. The driving position is a bit upright, but it's comfortable. And look at all these instruments in here. We've got rev counter, we've got oil pressure, which is fantastic. Still got the headlights and wipers over here. The choke is there. I think that's the washer on there. Stalk on the right hand side, like in so many older British cars, for the indicators. That glove box is not going to fit Mr. Commission documents, is it, viewers? I don't think so. I'm trying not to have kind of Faulty Towers vibes about this, because I think this is the same colour as the car that John Cleese thrashed in the Gourmet Night episode. That was, I think, 1100 Mark 1 Countryman. This is a very different sort of thing. So yes, if you do, think my video is unwatchable, then you can come here to Great British Car Journey and follow in the steps of Ian Seabrook and drive this very car. We've even got recording equipment in here for you to make your own video and make it better. So there we go. Nice sporty steering wheel. This looks similar to the gear lever out of something like a late Triumph Dolomite, but it's not, because reverse is actually in the opposite place. It's down and to the right, not up and to the right. Still got the sort of older style heater controls, but right down here, which is going to be difficult if you're wearing fixed seatbelts. But fortunately, this car has inertia reel seatbelts. Brilliant. I do not like fixed seatbelts, viewers. I really, really don't. So yeah, feels nice and comfy. One thing I would say is the pedals are very, very offset to the left-hand side, as you can see here. They aren't really straight in front of you at all, but that's just maybe a consequence of this sort of front-wheel drive and transmission in some layout, I don't know. But yeah, nice and sort of plushly trimmed. The 1100 that I drove has a really kind of amazing, untouched and very, very early sort of 60s feel to it. But this has a more of a kind of 70s feel, all this black vinyl and things like that. And even the sun visors are a little bit different. And we've got two of them as well. It's very fancy. Right, let's get in the back and see what that's like. It should be nice and comfy. Right, here we go. Yep, very sensible on your fire extinguishers in case anything happens. Not that it will. Just be careful getting in because I'm standing on sheet ice. That's probably a good idea. Yeah, sink into the backrest. It's very careful we don't get snagged in that inertia reel seatbelt. Oh, there we go. Yes, little cutouts as well. So it goes a lot more room than you'd actually imagine there to be. The only thing is my head is touching the headlining. This kind of older style headlining, which is so typical of cars of this time. But it's not bad. As you can see on this passenger seat here, there's actually quite a lot of room to put my feet in. I'm actually quite surprised. And loads of room on the sort of back ledge here. Yeah, it's quite comfortable. I mean, you could fit 5 in here for very short journeys. I've actually got an armrest in here as well. I tested I think a £28,000 Renault Megane E-Tech the other weekend, and that didn't have an armrest in it. So in 1971 you got your armrest in the 1300 GT, which is good. Yeah, I actually did travel in the back of one of these for quite some time. Back in October, the owner's a chap called Alan, and he drove with one of his friends in the front, and I was in the back of one of these. It was all right actually. Went for about an hour or so. It was okay. See if the suspension is a bit different. Apparently, the pressure of the hydroelastic fluid is different in these cars, which means the ride is a little bit lower. Right, let's not fall over. Ooh, that's good. Much as I'm sure you'd like to see me fall over. Sure, lots of people want that to happen, but there we go. So number plate is actually a little bit different from the earlier cars. Not just stay up like that, which is nice. Yeah, it's a very good quality restoration. This is very, very nice. You have to actually take those screws out to get to the spare wheel, but it's just under there. Fairly capacious. I mean, it'd be even better if it had a hatchback. It'd be even better. And of course, in Australia, you could get the Nomad, the Morris Nomad, which had the hatchback on it, which would make it even better, I think, in my opinion. But there we go. So the Austin 1300 GT actually continued all the way right until the end of ADO16 production in 1974. The Morris version was discontinued around 1971 for our market, although the introduction and discontinuation dates for ADO16s are so complicated that I'm not even going to bother. I'm just very fortunate that actually I've done one of these cars before, so we looked at more of that, but we're really focusing just on the 1300 GT model. And yes, the plug hole of despair. Actually, I'm not despairing at all, because I think this car is absolutely super. And we'll take a look under the bonnet and see if there's some changes there from the 48 brake horsepower at 1100 that I drove back in October. Straight away, one of the biggest changes that we have over an early ADO16 is the remote brake servo. So the brakes on this will be better. You don't necessarily need a brake servo in one of these cars, but it's nice to know it's there. You'll be going a bit faster in this. We've got a whole 70 horsepower from this 1275 A-series engine, and someone's very essentially put a weather shield here as well, because you know, this car gets driven quite a lot in the experience, so it's obviously a good idea. There we go. It still says Austin on here, and there's a commission number plate as well. So transmission's actually right in the sump, so it's all one unit, and the radiator's on the side there. Very space efficient design, typical of Isagonis. Car was actually initially co-designed, I think, between Isagonis and Pininfarina, and a superb job, a very neat looking little car. My preference would probably be the Riley version. The Van den Pla is very nice as well. Those continued selling well right until the end in 74. Riley was discontinued in 69, but that actually had a rev counter, and the Van den Plas don't. So I think that's my preferred model out of the sort of myriad different versions of this car. Right, it's time for me to stop whittering. I think then go for another drive. Lloyd Vehicle Consulting stickers, t-shirts and mugs are available by clicking the link to the Google form in the video description below. But yes, now once this is warmed up, this car does take a while to warm up. It is just driving beautifully. That's a bit of gearbox whine as well. Personally, I think I'd rather drive this than that Mercedes GLE that's just pulled into the to the experience. I think I'd be driving this today once he works out where he's going. So yeah, just very direct, you know, very similar to a Mini in how direct the steering is. That's no surprise considering they were designed by the same person. So yeah, Ian Seabrook drove this, I've driven this. I thoroughly recommend you come to Great British Car Journey in Derbyshire and have a go in this. I mean, maybe you want to have a go in this, maybe you want to go in about 37 other cars, but this would be on my list. If you've never driven an ADO16 before, you can come here and have a go, and I have enjoyed myself very much. So viewers, the Austin 1300 GT. Let's pose ourselves the same question that we did when we looked at the 1100
back in October 2022. Is this a car that you should consider as a sensible second-hand classic for a budget of between £1,000 and £5,000? Well, I don't think you can find something in this condition for between £1,000 and £5,000. I think you're going to have to pay a little bit more. But an ADO16 in general, yes, you can find them. They won't necessarily be a GT. They might be a bit of a lesser model. But if you could find one that's sort of rust-free, if I can please perhaps read you a quote about the rust from this book, A to Z of Cars 1945 to 1970, then we can understand what the issues might be. Still quite enjoyable, but rust is a killer, especially in the rear subframe. Caution, enjoined. I don't know what enjoined means. My uncle looked it up in the dictionary for me last night when I went to see him, because he lives near here. But yes, proceed with caution about the rust and everything else, but if you can find a good one of these, then you'll very much enjoy yourself. Anyway, thank you ever so much indeed once again for watching this episode of Sensible Secondhand Classics. Please don't forget to subscribe to the channel, like this video in the comment below. Thank you to everybody at Great British Car Journey once again for making it possible today for me to film this and several other cars. And we shall see you again very soon for more reasonably priced nostalgic motoring.